Well, thanks, Bonnie. That was a really in-depth background, and I think you're absolutely right. But I think the one thing we've got to focus on here is how much impact IoT will have on our lives. In the next 10 years, I firmly believe that they'll have more impact on our lives than social media has had over the last 10. More smart devices are coming online, and we interact with them more and more each day. And as you said, that means that our digital lives, our digital experiences and our real lives will merge until they become almost indistinguishable. So that's massively important, because your online security and privacy essentially becomes your physical security and privacy. They become the same thing. Just think of the challenges that social media has caused today, and that's happened, and you can turn your phone off. Now imagine when more and more objects every day are connected in everywhere you go, and that's not that far away, and you can't turn off your smart house, you can't turn off your smart office or a smart factory or even the smart city. Privacy and security is a basic human need, and that's why I'm so passionate about this partnership, because it has to work for all of our sakes. And I have to say, it is actually a partnership. And being able to collaborate openly has allowed us to really innovate. I know what we have today is far, far more than I envisioned when I first started speaking to the company. There's lots of benefits, and we'll discuss them. But two really stand out. Every communication is fully secured end to end. Now that sounds simple, but what I mean is really end to end. When an IoT you have just purchased, an IoT device you've just purchased powers up, we can automatically add that functionality. If you contact it then from the app on your phone or laptop or iPad, or by using anything that has your personal Atsign, which I'll explain in a minute, the communications from the palm of your hand to the device is encrypted and secure. No one can see it, not ZARIOT, not the app company, not the enterprise using the service, and that's actually provable. So not only can you be sure about your privacy and security, you can also control it. And that's the second point. And to steal a phrase off the app company, that flips the internet on its head. The way the system is designed means the device or the user controls what data is shared. The system allows you to control who sees what and when. And if I want an engineer to come and fix my device, then maybe I can share my location. But once it's repaired, I can just flip the information off, and it's never written to a server somewhere. As soon as I turn that off, the engineer has no more visibility, nor does the enterprise. You can share it when you want, real time, and you can remove it when you want, real time. And if we think about it, fundamentally, that's what we do in our physical lives. We tell people what we want, the information we want, and to who we want. And that's what's been crying out for the internet for years. In fact, that's the whole reason GDPR exists, is because we couldn't do that. What we're looking to do is give that principle of privacy back without sacrificing technology. And I think if we can do that, and I think we have done that, I think that's really, really cool. So how did we get here? So just as, I think we're a little bit behind with the slides. Chris, could you go a couple? There, the one with DNA. Yeah, okay. So a few months ago, I joined ZARIOT, and I decided I wanted to expand our security. We'd already had industry-winning network security, but I wanted to show something more tangible to the IoT solution itself. We talk all the time about having to know and secure the DNA of IoT to protect it, the device, the network, and the application. If you don't secure them all, then you're vulnerable. I was obviously aware of the GSMA's excellent IoT Safe program. What that does is it encrypts data from the device from using the SIM as a secret private key root of trust. So it's a very secure place to hold that root of trust, and that's the basis of all that security. And I love that idea, because a SIM is in every IoT device, and the new eSIM technology that's with us now gives us even more flexibility and options to innovate than ever before moving forward. And luckily, we have the in-house skills to be able to develop those SIM applets and functionality. So what I needed was a partner to provide the encryption And then I was introduced to the company, and I liked them straight away. They're really enthusiastic, you'll see. And he also shared the same views that we champion at ZARIOT about security. When I explained what we were looking for, there was that eureka moment, because they explained they were looking for exactly what I was offering: someone to put and secure their keys, their secret keys, somewhere securely. So great start. So far, so good. So I asked them to explain a little bit more how their solution works. And if I'm honest, it was more through politeness than anything else. I'd already pigeonholed how encryption process worked in a mental box. That's how that works. And then they started to explain something. And then all of a sudden, it started to get a little bit different. Instead of the simple private public key exchange that I had in my head, they started speaking about @signs. Being unique identifiers, and then they started to elaborate on how these keys, the keys they use, never existed anywhere but in the device. Now that's mad, because whenever I've looked at this before, there's always a central repository for keys, and that can always be hacked. So it's a point of weakness. But if the keys only reside on the device, they're the absolute core of the encryption policies. So if they only exist on the device, that massively brings down your vulnerabilities. So I was still trying to get my head around how that could possibly work, and they continued to talk me through how the rest of the solution works, and it gradually made my understanding worse and worse. They essentially destroyed my understanding of how I thought it was going to work. And as Bonnie mentioned earlier, she mentioned silos, and I slowly realized that I always prided myself on being forward thinking. I like that DNA. But then I realized that I'd walked into that meeting in exactly the same blinkered telecoms thinking that I complain about the industry having all the time. And if it hadn't been for the company completely bursting my bubble, then I probably would have walked out with what I wanted, but I wouldn't have got to where I am, where we are now. Because what needs to happen, and I talk about this a lot as well, is I walked in there probably wanting telco functionality for ZARIOT, and that's completely wrong, completely the wrong way to start. I should be looking to how to create an IoT solution, and that's what this does. The IoT industry has to become more active and integrated member of the IoT ecosystem, or we'll just miss out on opportunities to really innovate and bring that trust that Bonnie mentioned to the IoT community, because that's what they need. We need to be as innovative as the guys using this stuff. So we need to be able to be as active as those companies that are using it. So what I mean by that is you need to be as agile as the enterprises. There's no other way to work today. We can't move at a glacial pace that telco used to. And the only way we can do that is by pooling our experience and perspectives, and everybody involved working together to find the most effective answers. As I said, there was a number of benefits. Some rely on the eSIM technology, like remote provisioning. That makes IoT security on devices plug and play. That's hugely important. You can also, the SIM means you don't have to add other expensive secure elements to your device. So it actually drives the price down at times. Others are because of the unique app platform, as I mentioned. The keys reside on the edge. The devices only communicate outbound. That's an interesting one as well, because if you can't connect inbound, you can't hack it. So again, another quick win. So I keep talking about @signs in the app platform, but what are they? So I explain the @sign as a unique identifier. It's like your email address or Twitter ID, but for secure communications. And it simplifies all that encryption setup that none of us want to do, all those crypto keys and stuff that nobody really wants to be involved in. A device can have one, but so can an individual and a user. And that's how we achieve that palm to hand to IoT device encryption. All the communications is @sign to @sign. It doesn't matter what that @sign is associated with. It's @sign to @sign, and that's fully secured from the user to the device, from the device to a device, user to user, management platform to a device, whatever we want, @sign to @sign, and that means no one else can see it. For our solution, the device holds the Atsign private key that, like I said, the source of security locally on the SIM. If it was a user, then it would obviously be stored somewhere else. But either way, it means that the full control is with the end device or with the end user. They control who sees what and when. And that's great for the device owner, but it's actually a win-win for the enterprise as well, if you think about it, because the enterprise no longer have to worry about securely storing information, as the data just proxies through the network via the app company special server that Chris will go through. The enterprises don't control or own that data. So that means that they're not responsible. The responsibility is with the user. So that really helps with their GDPR overhead. So I better get on to the demo because I've overrun as usual. Our demo takes inspiration from the explosion in fitness and healthcare products. It's an oxygen and heart rate monitor. IoT in healthcare is seen significant success. Monty mentioned a few, but blood sugar and blood pressure testers all the way through to smart defibrillators and heart implants. They really are a boom area, but security is obviously scary around that sort of stuff. And those security threats have been there way back to 2014 when a blood infusion pump was controlled remotely via the internet, and that could have basically killed someone. More recently, COVID has seen a spike in people working out remotely using wearables like Fitbits and Garmin's, as well as smart gym equipment. Peloton, while not a cellular device actually, has led the way, but even companies as reputable as them have issues. This was most famously highlighted by the US Secret Services even, allegedly banning Joe Biden from using his because of security fears. So the scenario, the user of the device has been asked to get fit and his progress is being monitored by his doctor. A subset of data is being shared with his personal trainer. And finally, the user is temporarily sharing some personal location data with the equipment maintenance company to allow them to come and find him. He's out hiking somewhere in Wales. So to help me explain what's going on and to help with any questions at the end, we have Chris from the app company. Chris is highly qualified and highly respected and has held various CTO and R&D roles, Cohesive Networks, UBS or Swedish Chris, Swiss even, among others. He's also an editor of InfoQ and he co-hosts the Tech Debt Burn Down podcast. So Chris.
Thanks for the intro, Jimmy. And I'm now going to play through a short video which shows the demonstration that we've built for Mobile World Congress starting next week. So we begin with the demonstrated device itself. This is a Raspberry Pi, and on that Raspberry Pi, we've mounted a 4G module and a TFT module to provide connectivity in the display. And then it's got a sensor for biometrics, so reading heart rate and oxygen saturation. So you can see here, as somebody puts a finger on it, we're able to read out the heart rate. And in a moment, you'll be able to see that the oxygen saturation is also being recorded there. So that's the data being captured and displayed locally. But then we're using the connectivity to send that data into an Atsign, and it's from that Atsign that we can then use applications on mobile devices, tablets, and even desktops in order to provide access to that data to people that have been appropriately permissioned. So in this case, our users sharing their data with their doctor, and their doctor is able to see both the heart rate and the oxygen saturation. But the person who's got the device is in control of what they're sharing and who they're sharing with. So here we're visualizing another part of the scenario, which is sharing data with their fitness instructor. And in this case, the fitness instructor is only seeing the heart rate data. They're not getting the oxygen saturation in addition to that, because the person with the device has fine-grained control over who is seeing what. And as Jimmy mentioned, We can also use this for sharing things like biographical data and locations. So in this case, where somebody's wanting some maintenance done by Mr. Tech Fix-It, they're able to selectively share their location, and that automatically appears on the application being used by Mr. Tech Fix-It. But as soon as that maintenance is over, they can choose to unshare that data and it would be no longer live available. So that concludes a very quick walkthrough of the demonstration that we've prepared for Mobile World Congress next week. And I think now is time for us to move into questions.
Does the encryption work on the physical SIM cards, or do they need to be a particular kind of SIM card? Great question.
So the way we've designed it is ZARIOT have enabled a root of trust on our SIM cards, and they are supplied by Kigen. That profile is the same for any eSIM. So any enhanced SIM that's on the market now, we can actually put that profile on. But essentially, when that is delivered, we have a secure method of building the keys and delivering the keys using the over-the-air updates and our SIM provisioning platform from our partners. And then once those keys are produced, then the @company protocol takes over. And what we're actually securing is all the way from that application that's running in the IoT device, all the way through the network, the application, and out to whoever they're speaking to. So it is designed for the ZARIOT SIM, and we can deliver that with our global connectivity. But the actual encryption is the @company. Do you want to add anything to that, Chris?
Yeah, I would. I think the key point here is the person who's in control of the keys is in control of the data. And when we're using a device like the phones in our pockets, then they have a thing called a secure element on them, which can hold the keys. When we're using a thing, it doesn't have a secure element. And so the SIM card provides us with an alternative to the secure element as a place where we can securely store the keys and allow the things to take part in the end-to-end encryption.
This is Mark Arcas with EFE News Services. So I get all the benefits of end-to-end encryption on the SIM, but I would be curious about what do you think is the main challenge of like large-scale implementation of this system? Thank you.
So with the IoT, we can just build that out on a zero-touch plan. And I think that's something that eSIM has really been designed for. So we want to be able to, one of the reasons that that eSIM came into place was to give that flexibility. So you hear it spoken about a lot for changing telco providers. So for instance, if you've got in the future, when you've got an AT&T phone, it won't have a physical SIM, it'll have an eSIM in it. And if you want to move to Verizon, then you would just tell Verizon, and then the swap would happen. You wouldn't have to do anything. What they essentially do is there's multiple profiles in that digital SIM, and they flip between the two. We do exactly the same, but instead of changing operators, what we're actually changing is the functionality. So if you decide that your device wants to utilize the @company encryption, then all we do is we flip the profile, the ZARIOT profile, and instead of it having just plain, we can enable the key, the root of trust, and the @company software can actually write to the, can actually utilize the secure element, which is the SIM, which is very tamper-proof, and that security has actually been, again, key in the development of it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, cool.
I'll just ask Chris again. Did you want to add anything to that question as well?
I would add that for the Atsigns themselves, they scale out very naturally. So instead of trying to put all the data into one place in one giant pile, we're able to spread the data very thinly across one device to one Atsign, which means that the scalability of that is very natural.
Curious if you could just speak to the scenario when a device is lost or stolen.
When a device is lost or stolen. Okay, so we can, the device is SIM enabled, so we can block it from the network essentially. So we have when you look at the data encryption, there's basically two things happening with the SIM. You have the connections, the control protocol, for want of a better word. That's the thing that makes your phone ring or tells them you're engaged or connects you and registers you with the ZARIOT network or whichever network you're covered by. And then you have the data path, which goes all the way from the application through the data path, through all the different networks and to wherever it needs to end up. If the device is lost, we can simply take the SIM out of service.
And we can follow that up by deleting the @sign that was associated with that device. So the person would get another device and then pair that up with their sort of management interface, forwarding the data into their @sign and the @signs that they're choosing to share with per their previous configuration.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned actually, you can't reuse it on another network because it's our profile. So because it's our profile, I was saying about multiple profiles and multiple companies, because it's our profile, it's absolutely now to our network. As soon as we block it from our network, then that's it. So you can't reuse that. You can't get to that @sign somehow.
So if I can summarize, yeah, I think you guys, you basically said we can stop SIM fraud from the network side of things, and we can protect the data by deleting the @sign and kind of migrating to a new device, a new @sign. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example, actually. It highlights something else. It highlights the fact that the @sign is actually guaranteeing the identity as well. So we've been talking a lot about encryption, but the identity control is just as important, really, or could be.
So when we have @signs associated with people, there's processes in place for them to be able to recover an @sign following a lost device if they've not backed up their keys. But for @signs associated with devices, if the device is lost or stolen, you would just not want that @sign anymore, and you generate a new @sign to go with the new device.
Yes, hi, thanks, Bonnie. I know that we've already seen practical application in the video that Chris showed us, but I was wondering if maybe Jimmy and Chris could give us a little bit more, a few more examples of day-to-day, practical applications, like how are users going to be using this technology, in their day-to-day lives?
I think IoT on the whole is going to be more and more of your day-to-day life. There's no way that you're not going to use IoT moving forward. It will I nearly said invade, but I think that might be a good word because there's nothing you can do about it. IoT will affect your life more than anything else in the next 10 years. The difference in your life today to your life in 10 years will be the most considerable because of IoT, in my opinion. So you're going to have to work with it, and that's why it's so important to be able to look after these sort of this sort of information. And it could be a remote camera somewhere that's monitoring a depot. If I walk up to that and I can look at that data, intercept that data, then maybe I know when the shipment of really expensive iPhones or whatever it is leaving the depot, and I can do something bad there. So it could be as simple as that. An interception of that sort of video data is always in the news. There was another baby monitor, Nui, was highlighted, I think, just 2 weeks ago. So those sort of areas are very strong. We're seeing a lot about globalization. So tracking of containers, beer barrels comes up quite a lot. We have a couple of those because they're aluminium, they get stolen. So the devices are as mixed as as you can imagine, basically. And as we might start to move forward with 5G and we start to leverage some of the stuff that 5G brings. At the moment, cellular IoT is seen as maybe a little bit more expensive. I think moving forward, when we start to adopt more of the functionality of 5G, I think that's when the price points come down. And that's when you see the advantages of some of the new technology, the mobile edge compute or multi-access edge compute, and pushing out the levels of device saturation that you can do with telco that you can't do with Wi-Fi and similar solutions. I think that's when you really start to see the impact. But yeah, you'd be amazed with how many things are connected. If you just think, you need to think actually, and this is one of the problems with IoT security, you have to think how that device is doing that. So that that thing in your car that tells the insurance company you've done over, you drive at a very level 30 miles an hour and you never speed, and gets you a cheaper premium, that's connected. But you have to start thinking about all of those different devices, and that's only going to increase massively over the next few years.
And I think fundamentally, we need to ask, do we want our devices to be spying on us, whether that's intentionally by the service provider or unintentionally when service providers become compromised? And what we can do with end-to-end encryption is take away the opportunity for that service provider spying. So that's maybe providing less monetization opportunities for the service providers by doing that spying. Whether that leads to selling, trying to advertise to us or whatever else, but it makes it a better quality premium product for people to adopt, because they know that their privacy is being preserved and that they're in control of the data being generated by their devices.
Yeah. And if you think about the mental health problems and challenges we're seeing today, like I said on the presentation, you can turn your mobile phone off. You can't turn your smart house off. If you feel that you're being spied on by your house or your factory or the road you walk down to get to work, because that will be connected as well, how will that affect people? I have no idea how it will affect people, by the way, but we never thought about it 10 years ago, but maybe we should start thinking about it now, because we can see what happens when that's eroded.
For all of the device manufacturers out there, how difficult is it to integrate their device into the protocol and your technology?
Great question.
So on the SIM side, it's very, very easy. We can retrofit it. As long as it's an eSIM, we can push those profiles out, so we can retrofit those. And luckily, we're with our partner, Kigen is hugely deployed globally. So if you want to utilize the functionality, then they can really facilitate that. So it's very, very easy, and we can pull that all the way through from your facility that's building them all the way through. So that's something we can definitely do. Obviously, there is some overhead with the app protocol, but on most devices that's very low. So in most cases it should be fine, but we would need to do that by a case-by-case basis just to be 100% sure, because the devil's always in the detail. Chris?
Yeah, I would describe our entry level as an ARM v7 with system on chip rather than an MCU, and Linux operating system. So we've not yet come down to the MCU level and hard-coded real-time operating systems, but sort of anything above that is a suitable envelope to run the client inside of.